I guess I'll tell you what Unicole, teaches is that you have your personal reality. Yeah. I have my personal reality. We have our shared physical reality. We have our shared spiritual reality. And we just get to respect one another's beliefs. Yeah. So I respect you for finding that very difficult to believe. I understand that. Totally respect it. And you can respect me for believing that. And the goal with Unicole is to get to a place where everyone can be their true self.
What does that mean to be your true self? How is that even possible?
How would it not be possible?
Because how do you know what's true?
Your own heart tells you.
How do you know that you're interpreting what your heart is trying to tell you?
You know Marie Kondo?
No.
She's the cleaning, tidy up. She's on Netflix. She says, if something in your home doesn't spark joy, you should get rid of it. You should thank it and get rid of it.
I've heard that.
So the term spark joy is a genius way to describe the internal compass of your heart. So when you feel that spark of resonance, that spark of joy, that's how you know something is closer to the truth.
Okay. But it's still just subjective.
But it's your own consciousness.
Yeah.
So you get to decide, and I don't have to judge you, and you don't have to judge me. We just get to do whatever our true selves desire, as long as no one gets harmed, including yourself.
Yeah.
That's what we say.
Yeah. Well, how do you know? I mean, how can you know that you're not harming yourself? Right? Like what if you're harming yourself doing this?
Because I'm going in a higher and higher vibration.
Well, how are you?
It's joy.
How are you dictating that? How do you know you're going into a higher dimension?
Because it's joy. I'm following my joy.
Yeah.
And so the closer to a state of near constant joy you get, the higher vibration you are.
So let's dig into that, because I think so many people are suffering right now, especially younger generations, right? It's a lot of depression and anxiety and suicide. It's the highest that it's been in a long time. Why do you think that is?
Because it's a terrible planet to live on.
Why is it terrible?
Because
I have to completely disagree with that. I think we're very lucky to live on this planet.
We have a lot of negative thought forms going around, and a lot of really terrible, predatory, systematic situations that influence us in our day-to-day lives. I think
name some of them.
The fat shaming culture, and focusing on diets, and having to go to a job and work in order to survive, and being homeless if you can't.
But being homeless isn't a systematic thing.
Yes, it is.
Fat shaming isn't systematic.
It's absolutely systematic. It's all because it's within our culture.
But how is that systematic? You don't think it's just a collective consciousness of individuals?
It's because we're living in a greed-based system. So anything that is...
Why do you think it's a greed-based system?
Because it is. Capitalism is a greed-based system where the bottom line is the dollar. It's more important than anything else. It's more important than consumer safety, employee safety, health, happiness, anything.
How is that?
That is the truth.
Because consumers no, not every person knows that, and a lot of people don't think capitalism is about greed either.
But everybody knows that every business has to keep the bottom line in mind.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Well, I mean, of course.
That means that it's a greed-based system.
But the better that companies treat their customers, the better that they'll do as a company. The more successful they'll become.
To a point.
Name a company that isn't.
Most companies will do as good as they can to trick people that they're a good company.
Like what company does that?
I don't like to name companies.
Why not?
Because it's advertising.
Well, that's good, but I'm just curious because
every big company puts
Apple
puts on a facade.
I said the name Apple. Do you think Apple is trying to trick customers?
I think
I would say that Apple is providing the best service possible to their customers with the products that they create.
It's not true, because they're not a harmonious company.
And why are they not harmonious?
The reason why they're not a harmonious company is because there are systems of harm within their business model. So
like what?
The workers who mine the metals,
You're talking about in China?
Yes.
That situation?
Yeah. So
aren't those people better off than they would have ever been because they have jobs and they're getting paid?
It doesn't matter if you're making an incremental difference. If there's any harm at all in your system.
But the world has harm and it's part of human beings.
The goal is harmony.
Yeah, of course.
But not for Apple. The goal is money. So they're going to be saying, okay, we can cut our losses here. We can cut our losses here. We'll create harm here. Oh, they're better off anyways, just getting poisoned. But they could change that. They could make a work environment where people aren't getting poisoned. They could make a work environment where children aren't mining minerals, right? They have that power, but they choose not to extend that power because they're putting profit over lives. So that's
you think they're compromising harmony for money is what you're saying?
Yes, every business. In order to be a business, that's the way that the world has been working.
Well, let me ask you this question. What is better than capitalism? What works better?
Unitopia.
Besides that, what actual...
Unitopia. That's why I created the idea, is to replace the systems in place.
What is Unitopia exactly?
Unitopia is the reality that we will enter into when we're ready for it. It's the reality where every person does the work of their true heart and every person has their basic needs met.
Well, but what if someone's work that they want to do that's in their true heart is to create amazing iPhones that change the world?
Then they can do it without harming anyone.
How? I mean, like...
by thinking about it for 5 minutes.
Well, what could Apple do differently?
I'm sure
right now,
they know.
Do you think? Well, then why wouldn't they do it? Why do you think that they wouldn't?
Because it's expensive.
Well, yeah.
Because they care about money.
Yeah. Well, so Unitopia, how is it practical?
Everyone's happy.
How, though? How is everyone happy?
Oh, you mean practically, how does it work?
Yeah, how does it work?
Okay. First of all, everyone has to learn how to listen to their true hearts, like we talked about, listening to that thing that sparks joy in your heart. Then, okay, so I recently had an experience where I went to the dentist and they really ruined my teeth. They did a bad job. And I was like really lamenting this and I was wishing I had my old dentist back. And that my old dentist loved teeth. He was like obsessed with teeth, like to almost a creepy degree. He like loved teeth, but also he was a great dentist.
Yeah. Well, that's probably why he was a great dentist.
Right? And so when we create like this other guy who was my dentist who ruined my teeth, probably became a dentist because it pays good and his dad was a dentist, whatever.
Yeah.
And so that means that our world isn't balanced in a way to support people to do the work of their true heart. There's probably somebody bagging groceries who's obsessed with teeth, who would be a great dentist, but doesn't have the resources to go to dentistry school. So when we create that understanding in our society for every person to have the resources and ability to follow what their true heart wants. And it's not like you do it for money or you do it for prestige or you do it for whatever. It's like you do it because that's what you do. And then we allow everybody to do that. Then I believe we will reach a state of perfect harmonious balance where all the work is getting done and things like automation are taking care of things that people don't want to do because everyone can sit down and think about solutions to things because we actually have time to do that. So it starts with universal basic income. It continues on with wealth redistribution and creating abundance for everyone to do what they want to do with their days.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously that sounds cool. I mean, of course, I think most people would like to have that in place. I mean, I think most people would like to, but the issue, right, the friction is that I don't think it's possible.
Of course, anything is possible.
Like a utopia is impossible.
Why?
Because human beings, right? Human nature. There's always going to be people that want to win and overcome and be at the top of the pyramid, right?
That's that's because the pyramid exists and it's a lack-based mindset.
Why do you think it's because the pyramid exists? Don't you think that we created the pyramid, human beings?
Personally, no.
What do you think did? How do you think it got created?
I don't think you're going to believe me.
No, tell me. I mean, it's interesting.
I believe that that an alien race came to Earth and created a fear-based structure for Earthlings to exist in. And I believe that they have ruled over this planet for a few thousand years and created...
I know who's the guy, right, that talks about this kind of stuff. What's his name? Robert something or...
There's a lot of people, probably David Icke.
David Icke is what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I've heard David Icke stuff. Is it what you're talking about? Same thing?
A little bit. There's a lot of different theories, a lot of different channelings, a lot of different texts that kind of allude to the same thing. And it's really the way that I came to the conclusion of it is by simply looking around. And I did get into conspiracy theories and I did read a lot of David Icke. And one of the things that he talks about is that you follow a trail of deception and you follow it up and you see that it hits this sort of the ceiling of there's got to be a small amount of people controlling this. You could think of media as example, you're like, wow, all the movies kind of portray this same kind of romantic energy. You could dial in on. So you're like, oh, there's this heteronormative behavior that's being presented on screen always. And maybe you could say that that's natural or normal or whatever, but it's actually, there are other types of relationships that exist and they weren't shown on TV for a really long time or on movies. So you could say that's a conspiracy if you want. You take that up and you say, okay, well, who's making movies? Okay, well, who's choosing which movies get made? Okay, so it's this money thing and it goes up to this, small percentage of people who are at the top. And then you can do that with banking. You can do it with all these with everything in the world, right? And so you're sort of seeing this toxic, detrimental structure that's sort of built up on the world. And you get to this place where you realize this has to be coming from someplace, it's a pyramid, right? It's a top-down power structure. And there's people with very little power at the top. This is in every workplace. You've got a boss, you've got managers, you've got employees. So there's people with very little power at the bottom, the majority of people with very little power, and a minority of people with a lot of power at the top. And so when you get to the top, conceptually, and you think about what could be driving these people to create a system that is so toxic and so detrimental for the entire planet, because
I just don't think it's bad for the planet. I think we're doing amazing.
You're exceptionally privileged.
Why am I privileged? What makes you
to
think
be able
that?
To say that? I mean, like you said, there are people suffering. If you have absolutely no anxiety, no illness, no debt, you feel just dandy every day, like all your dreams are fulfilled, then I
have a lot of
a
suffering all the time. But I still think that that's better than what we could be going through right now.
Sure, but
because we could all just be murdering and killing each other like apes, because we are apes, right?
But wouldn't you like to go beyond that?
Oh yeah, of course. I think we are. I think it's a slow evolution. I think it's happening.
Well, it can't happen if you don't believe it's going to happen.
Well, I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen through artificial intelligence.
How so?
I think we're probably going to end up being able to mimic or create consciousness and then integrate ourselves into a higher level of consciousness and get rid of the physical. It won't even be necessary.
How will that work?
How?
How will we integrate ourselves into a higher state of consciousness through AI?
Probably starting with Elon Musk's Neuralink, where it connects connects your brain directly to the internet.
So you think that access of information will be enlightening?
I think it could be, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're possibly aiming toward a much better society. I just don't like when people talk so negatively about it, because I think it's the best we're trying our best. All humans, we're just doing the best we can do.
Yeah, we are, but they're
because I think it's kind of privileged to not acknowledge how lucky you are, Sure,
but there are solutions to problems, and I think it's okay to talk about them.
Yeah, of course, but I don't think the solutions are as easy as some people like to make it sound.
And I think all we need is belief and collaborative effort.
What do you mean by belief? Like law of attraction stuff?
No, I mean, if you wake up and you think, oh, I'll never get a job. Let's say you need to get a job. And you wake up and you say, I'll never get a job. And you just stay in bed and you don't apply to any jobs because you believe you're never going to get a job. You'll never get a job.
Yeah.
But if you say, oh, I'm going to get a job. And you're like, which job am I going to get? I'm going to go apply. So that's a small example, but that's how we have to approach our future. Because if we just say, oh, all this dystopian stuff, or oh, it's just this slow progression, and we don't really focus our energy on what that means, we're not going to get out of bed. We're not going to change anything. It's just going to keep on going the way it is. And complacency is dangerous.
No. I completely agree with you there. That's an amazing. I think people have to really believe, but even more than that, they have to take action to actually start to try to change things.